Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 272, and on the prelims, we have a very interesting featherweight fight between Umar Nurmagomedov and Brian Kelleher, and this video is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this fight. And these guys are two typical bantamweights. I don't remember the exact reason why this fight's being contested at 145 pounds. I think it was kind of offered on short notice for this card. Neither guy wanted to cut weight, so the UFC just decided to do it at 145. But typically, both these guys fight at bantamweight. And this is a very interesting matchup. Umar Nurmagomedov coming in, only has one fight in the UFC versus Brian Kelleher, a veteran in the UFC, and a decent measuring stick to see where Umar Nurmagomedov is. If you look at the tail of the tape, Umar Nurmagomedov is 26, Brian Kelleher is 35, Nurmagomedov is 5'8", Kelleher is 5'6". Nurmagomedov has a 69-inch reach and Kelleher has a 64-inch reach. So a massive youth advantage for Nurmagomedov and a 4-inch reach advantage for Nurmagomedov. So if you look at Brian Kelleher's resume, he's been in the UFC since 2017, so about roughly 5 years. And for the majority of his UFC career, he's traded wins and losses. And there's a common theme that I noticed I'm going to talk about here in a second. But he lost his second fight in the UFC to Marlon Vera back in 2017. I do not remember where Marlon Vera was skill-wise back in 2017. I can't remember. But that loss isn't a bad loss to have on your resume. Look where Marlon Vera is now in the bantamweight division. He's a ranked bantamweight, and he has that massive win over Sean O'Malley where he just chopped his legs off and then brutally flash KO'd him with ground and pound, and then O'Malley had to be stretchered out of the cage with no serious injury. So Marlon Vera, not a bad loss to have on your resume. He then goes on a 2-fight win streak, beating former featherweight champion Renan Barão. Former bantamweight champion Renan Barão. I got confused because this fight's being contested at featherweight. Then he loses to John Lineker. He was KO'd. John Lineker is an elite level fighter, so not a bad loss to have. Then he loses via submission, Darce choke to Montel Jackson. Then he gets a decent win. He submits Ode Osborne. Then he beats Hunter Azure back by KO back in May of 2020. Then he loses to Cody Stamann via decision. And in this fight, I believe he was just out-grappled. I can't remember 100% of that fight. Then he gets another win. Then he fights Ricky Simone, a good step up in competition there, and he loses. And I remember this fight. This was back at UFC 258, February of last year. And basically, he just got out-grappled in this fight. And I think this was the fight where he got cut on the eyebrow really early, was bleeding pretty bad. And since then, he's gone on a 2-fight win streak. His last fight was January of this year, so not that long ago, literally a little more than a month ago, against Kevin Croom. Not the most impressive performance. He won by decision. And it was a fight that was kind of back and forth, but Kelleher, I think he won all 3 rounds, if I remember correctly, and basically mixed in the striking and grappling and was just more effective within the fight. And you look at Umar Nurmagomedov, there's not much to look at. He has one fight in the UFC. He fought Sergey Morozov back in January of 2021. And this was a very impressive win by Umar Nurmagomedov. He won in the second round via rear naked choke, and he looks so good in this fight. And I know, Sergey Morozov just had that recent loss, but, against Douglas Silva de Andrade. But that fight, he was in it until he ended up, I think he got clipped. I can't remember exactly what happened, and eventually lost via rear naked choke. But I don't think the win over Sergey Morozov is that great, but I think, Sergey Morozov is a decent test. This guy is not a trash can by any means. Nobody in the bantamweight division is a trash can, really, because you look at the bantamweight division, I've talked about it many of times. Even outside the top 15, you have elite level fighters, and Umar Nurmagomedov went out there and he won every aspect of that fight. He was outstriking him. He hurt him badly with a head kick early in the second round, then went for the finish but didn't get it, and then he reset, was super patient. Then eventually I think he got the takedown and then gets the rear naked choke. It was a great performance and a great UFC debut for Umar Nurmagomedov. And I know a lot of people kind of hype up guys, especially when they're related to Khabib or they're coached by Khabib, that they really hype them up. And I'm not a person that really buys into that hype too much. Just because you train with a certain guy or you're related to a certain guy doesn't mean you're going to be as good as them. But the debut could not have been better, and it lasted long enough where he really got to showcase all his skills. He showcased his striking, he showcased his grappling, he showcased his submission skills. He looked so good in that fight against a legit guy, in my opinion. So when I look at this fight and I think about all the avenues to victory, I look at Brian Kelleher, and I really don't see him going out there and KOing Umar Nurmagomedov. I don't see him submitting him. I think the only way Brian Kelleher wins this fight is by decision, and I don't think that's very likely either. I am going Umar Nurmagomedov via rear naked choke. I'll say first round rear naked choke. I think Brian Kelleher has decent skills. He's a guy that's kind of well-rounded. He's not really great everywhere. He's kind of average everywhere, decent everywhere. And I just think I am fully on the Umar Nurmagomedov hype train. I think this guy looks great everywhere. And people hear that Nurmagomedov last name and they think automatically you're some crazy grappler. And he has great grappling, don't get me wrong. But the striking is what I'm impressed with. He has super fast high kicks. He has great leg kicks. He has a great variety of attacks. He has fast hands. The transitions, if he gets that body lock and then he's transitioning to the back so fast, he's able to scramble very well. In the Sergey Morozov fight, Morozov was Granby rolling nonstop while Nurmagomedov had that back body lock, and he was just following him through and controlling him through the scrambles. This guy just looks so good everywhere, and I think he can really be a future contender in the bantamweight division, and I just don't think Brian Kelleher can beat him anywhere. I think maybe Brian Kelleher has a power advantage, but I don't even think that's the case. I just don't see where Nurmagomedov loses this fight. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the faster striker. I think he has the better grappling. I think, you look back at that Ricky Simone fight for Brian Kelleher, he lost the fight because he was out grappled. I think Umar Nurmagomedov, let's say he's losing the striking exchanges, which I don't think he will. I think he can out grapple Brian Kelleher. He can press him up against the fence. He can take him down. If he gets that back body lock, we've seen it with plenty of these Russian guys. If they get that back body lock up against the cage, there is no getting out of it. They will shuck you forward and take you down. They will trip you. They will pull you backwards. They will find a way to get you to the ground. And I really believe this fight's going to consist of an absolute masterclass by Umar Nurmagomedov. I think he's going to pick Brian Kelleher apart on the feet. And I think eventually he's going to shoot in on a takedown. He's shown, in that fight with Sergey Morozov, he's shown he has great timing on the takedowns. I mean, he was opening up with the hands and the kicks, landing strikes, and then boom, just out of nowhere, just shoots on a double leg, perfectly times, gets him down. I think he will have Brian Kelleher second-guessing everything. I think he'll mix in the grappling. I think he'll mix in the striking. And I think eventually in that first or second round, I think Nurmagomedov is going to clip him with a power punch or possibly a head kick, and then get Brian Kelleher in a scramble position where he probably has the back body lock, eventually drags him to the ground and locks up a rear naked choke. I think Umar Nurmagomedov, I think this fight was set up by the UFC to really showcase his skills. Brian Kelleher is a veteran guy. He's 35 years old. He's getting up there in age. He's slowing down. He's never been able to compete with the real elite of the bantamweight division. And I think Nurmagomedov's going to go out there and make a showcase fight out of Brian Kelleher and win via rear naked choke. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching.